Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Jeremiah Wonders. I'm so happy that you are joining me today. And I got to say, the episode that you're about to watch or listen to right here, right now, is one of my favorites that I've ever done. It is with my dad, my father, Ken Watkins. He's on the show today, live in the flesh. I went back home to Kansas City last month, and I sat with him in his backyard at his house in Missouri. And we talked about his childhood. We talked about his previous marriages. He told me things that he said that some of his wives have never even known about. So I talk about the marriages before we got to my mom. And it's crazy. He said some stuff on there that, I for sure have never heard in my life. So it's cool that we get to share this together, but it's an amazing episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys have been enjoying my 1 hour special, Jeremiah Watkins Family Reunion, available on Amazon Prime, Video on Demand, Apple TV, Google Play, all that good stuff. Been plugging it for a minute. I appreciate everybody who's just been watching it and making posts on Instagram at Jeremiah Stand Up. If you're not following me already, please do so. I've been posting clips from the special on my YouTube that you can watch, and all the likes and comments are going a long way, and the reviews on iTunes, all that stuff helps. And people have been listening on Spotify too of the album, so I really appreciate that. And I'll have some vinyl and some CDs available to mail you if you'd like that soon. And I'm in a hotel room on tour right now. I just got done with some shows in Fort Worth, Texas, so closing out the night with this intro for the week on the Roadcast. I got this great I'm Jack the Ripper t-shirt that's available on my website, jeremiahwatkins.com. A lot of announcements that I just spit at you guys, but I appreciate the support. A lot of things happening right now. 2021, here we go. I love you guys. Thank you for the support on this podcast, and please welcome, for the first time as a guest, my dad, Ken Watkins, to Jeremiah Wonders.
Jeremiah Wonders.
All right, here with my Dadoo in his backyard out in Missouri.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. We're doing a podcast outdoors right now. How cold do you think it is right now? I'm seeing my breath.
About 34 degrees. 34.
We got a good old fashioned fireside chat going.
Yep. FDR would be proud of us. He might roll over in his grave.
I know, right? Have you ever done a podcast before, Dad?
I might have stumbled into your podcast once before, but as far as a one-on-one, I don't believe so. Certainly not outdoor.
Yeah, first time being a guest and first time doing it outdoors.
And first time at 34 degrees.
First time at 34 degrees. I know, a lot of firsts today. This is cool. Well, this is a kind of a unique opportunity for me to maybe even get to know you even better along with my listeners in some way, because I'm sure that there's going to be stories and stuff that we might naturally stumble upon that I may have never even heard, even though you've been my dad my entire life.
Okay, that's kind of scary. Come to think of it, we'll try to navigate through the minefields.
Well, we were talking just yesterday about how basically my mom is. What marriage was that for you?
That was, well, we don't count one because it was less than 90 days. So really, she was my second wife. That second one doesn't really
Tell me about the 90-day one.
No, I made the mistake of marrying a millionaire's daughter, and I'm not a wealthy man. I couldn't keep enough cocaine and pot and booze on hand to keep her happy, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now, the sex part I had no problem with. It was all the rest of the stuff. It was all the other things. She liked to run those white lines, I think.
So was that marriage number 2?
That was number 2.
Okay, so tell me, we'll work back. We'll get to mom in a second, but number 2.
Yes.
How did you meet this
It
lady?
was number 2, literally. Yeah. Certainly was. In more ways than one.
Because I don't know anything about this woman, because obviously, when you have kids with somebody else, you don't really talk about that different part of your life, really.
Well, I met her in a bank. I was cashing checks, and I was in the insurance business at the time, traveling, And so I would let checks accumulate because I was using a credit card, and I'd go in there and cash 3 or 4 checks at a time. So she thought I was making about 4 times what I was really making. And and we got to talking. Her last name happened to be Watkins, Denise Watkins. And then we got to joking around. She said, well, if we get married, I won't have to change your name.
Yeah.
So,
change your name.
My name.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So you were dating a feminist before it was cool.
Well, not really. I mean, she was not in the traditional sense. I mean, certainly she was all woman. I will say that she was a lingerie model, and from the neck down she was a 10. From the neck up about a 5 or 4. But it all worked out real well. It worked out real well for me. I had no complaints.
You're saying that the wife you had before Mom was a lingerie model?
Yeah, she was. No lie. Yeah. She's a lingerie model.
Did they only shoot her from the neck down?
She never let me go on set. I don't know. That was before my time. I think a lot of that was fabricated.
She was on sets and stuff like that. Really?
No. She actually did. She modeled lingerie. But she didn't make a ton of money at it. She wouldn't have been a bank teller, right? So I think it was probably J.C. Penney's type underwear. It wasn't Victoria's Secret, so let's put it that way.
It was more like a Kohl's or a Marshall's kind of.
Well, see, that was back in the days of Fredericks of Hollywood. That was before Victoria's Secrets came on board and legitimized beautiful lingerie for women.
Of course.
So... And we had a fling. And, so
how did that fling come about? Like it was just flirting, kind of at a bank, kind of thing.
At a bank, and I really think she thought I was making a lot more money than I was making, and so we proceeded to rapidly begin to date, and then we rapidly got married, and then I moved to Texas with her. And
what part of Texas did you live in?
Dallas. Lived in Dallas for a year.
See, I don't even know if I was aware that you lived in Dallas for a year.
I love Texas. Texas is not a state; it's a state of mind. I mean, they're so free. You can be. I'll never forget. I'm pulling on an exit ramp, and there's a big old guy in a pickup truck behind me. You look like Bigfoot. And he just decided to make his own exit ramp. He just got off on the side and drove down the middle of nowhere. And that was Texas for you. You could be going down the highway in Texas, and there'd be a guy driving the other lane on a 2-lane road, and he'd just pop up 2 fingers, his first and second finger, and that meant get your ears up. There's a cop coming.
Oh, really?
Or if you were driving along and a guy was in front of you.
I was going to adjust it. You're good. Just point it.
If a guy was in front of you and he wasn't going as fast as you wanted him to, he'd just pull over on the shoulder and let you go by him.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wild. I love Texas. I mean, Texas had everything. East Texas had the forest. West Texas had the desert. Southern Texas had South Padre Island and the ocean. And northern Texas, I don't know, Indians and casinos, pretty much about it. That works out okay, too, if you like to play little cards and hit the slots.
Sure,
Not that I would do anything like that, but in those days.
So you got temporarily lucky with your second wife in Texas.
Well, I got lucky the night we dated the first time, but you're not talking about that, are you? Oh, she was hotter than a firecracker, baby.
How well do you remember that night?
What night? The night I met her?
Yeah.
I met her. Well, I met her at the bank cashing my checks.
Right.
And I took her out, and it was.
Do you remember where you went to eat?
I have no idea.
Just some kind of restaurant.
I just remember after we went to eat.
What happened after you went to eat?
It was the wildest sex I ever had. This one, I won't get specific, but I'm just saying.
It's okay. You can. We're talking freely. We're in the backyard right now.
Have you heard of the term snapper?
No, I've
no.
Never.
Well, every now and then, a woman is blessed with extraordinary capabilities. So let's put it that way. It's just nice terms, which means they can take very good care of me. She was blessed and I was blessed. So it was a mutual blessing.
So what? So she was a snapper. Can you describe what that means?
That means in bed. In bed. That means in bed. It's just. I hate to get specific, but
I would love for you to get specific.
The minute it begins, it's like a vacuum sweeper. I'm telling you what. It literally, they call those back in the 70s. Those were called a snapping pussy. And they would grab a hold of you and wring you out. It'd be like making love to an old-fashioned washing machine wringer. I hate to God rest her soul. I think she died of cancer. I hope not. But she married a guy that he was known as Cocaine Dave. He ran a couple auto parts places.
Yeah.
And if you went in there and ordered a certain set of spark plugs with a certain number, you wouldn't get spark plugs.
Oh,
you'd get some white stuff.
Right.
So she left me for him. But we had a pretty good run. We lived in Dallas for a little less than a year. I told her, I said, I'll live with you, but I can't be married to you. And so we got a divorce and then lived together for the next year, which was kind of backwards.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So wait, so what led to that divorce then? And then how did you manage, as a salesman that you are, to still get the friends with benefits kind of treatment?
Well, I had a marquee diamond on her hand that back in the 70s cost $5,000, which is probably equivalent to about $15,000 in today's money. So I still, she was still wearing the ring and all that, and we lived together, and
What caused the divorce after the 90 days?
Other than in bed, we fought like cats and dogs. So we just that was the only good part of the marriage.
So that was the best part of the relationship.
Only thing worth it.
Sex was at the top, and then everything else kind of
it went downhill fast. Yeah, real fast. But
from the neck down, and the relationship was bad. Or vice versa.
From the neck, if I could have just taped her mouth shut, the neck down was good. But she had a mouth on her. Although there were times I had no complaint in that department either. So anyway, but no, we parted. We moved back to Kansas City, and it went south real fast. I was.
So you lived with her in Dallas for like a year or so.
Altogether, we were together about a year.
And then you moved back to Kansas City after that? With her or without her?
With her, yeah.
How come she moved back to Kansas City with you?
Well, her folks were here, and I was from here, and she was from here, so.
What was the initial push to go to Dallas?
We
Just
went
freedom?
from Dallas to Tucson, actually.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, we lived in Tucson for about 9 months.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tucson was amazing. I would say of the 52 weeks I lived in Tucson, I camped out, went out to either the canyons or Mount Lemmon 40 of the 52 weeks.
Now,
Tucson's a wonderful place for outdoorsmen.
When you would go to these outdoor places, would you be smoking weed or taking any kind of mushrooms or acid or anything
Didn't
like
do
that?
the mushrooms. Got a window pane of acid every now and then.
Now explain to me, what's a window pane of acid?
A window pane is a little tiny microdot, which I think they call a microdot.
Microdosing now?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Well, no, microdosing is taking small amounts. They're doing that on Wall Street right now, from what I understand. Microdosing will cure migraines. It'll help you just stay up a lot like cocaine. Microdosing is businessmen love microdosing.
Okay.
But a microdot was just a tiny amount of
a little droplet,
but enough to,
as Fauci would say, a droplet.
But enough to get you totally messed up.
Yeah.
But mainly just pot and booze.
Would she ever do acid with you?
No, never did acid with me. No,
So you just go out and be a wilderness guy where you would take some drugs?
Well, no, I had my brother. I did everything wrong in that marriage. I had my brother move out to Tucson with us, so he's living
Uncle
with,
Paul was living with you guys?
Oh yeah.
How big was the house that you were living in out in Tucson?
Normal 3-bedroom house. I mean, we were in a nice place. I had a view of the mountains. I mean, we did all right. And then I ended up. We bought a house in Tucson, bought a house in Dallas, and then sold it and bought it. Back in the 70s, you could buy a house and 90 days later sell it and make money. It was called a bigger fool theory. No matter how big a fool you were to buy property, it would go up in appreciation. Inflation was going crazy. So you'd pick up several $1,000s, and you could sell them. Didn't need a realtor. Back in the 70s, you could assume a home loan without having to qualify for it.
Okay.
So a lot of that was going on.
Yeah, where people
speculation.
Where they're like, oh, I can handle this, and then there's no way to pay it back.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's probably why certain housing market crashes happen over the years.
Exactly why they happen.
Yeah,
but people they should be renting or buying. That's
So Uncle Paul was living with you guys. How old were you at this time?
25, 26.
Okay, so he must have been early 20s.
20,
He was 20 years old, and he moved out to...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And this was marriage number 2?
Marriage number 2.
So you're married at this is a second marriage in your mid-20s.
Right.
So
I got married my first one at 19. I was actually, so I'm 26. I'm 27 now. I got married at 19. I was married 7 years, and then got a divorce.
And no kids or anything
No kids.
Did you had you talked about it with the first wife at all?
Yeah, I told her if she ever got pregnant, I was out of there. So didn't do a lot for, needless to say, the respect level is kind of low. But she put up with me. Why she would have, I don't know. For the life of me, she was a sweet girl, and she deserved a lot better. But again.
Where did you meet the first wife at?
The old classic, driving through the drive-in. You got your hot rod car parked, and she drives by in her old broken-down '62 Chevy, and you got your '69 Chevelle Super Sport parked in there with the rear end all jacked up and the big tires on the back and the 396, and it's brand new, and you're looking like a stud, and she comes driving by, and her girlfriend, and so you flag them down and say, hey, let's double up. Let's go for me and my buddy. Always had I gotta have a wingman.
You gotta have a wingman.
Gotta have a wingman.
Now, would he get the table scraps? Would he get?
Not at all. No, this guy was a stud, man. He put me to shame. I learned from him. I was probably his wingman. In fact, we were dating when we got in with these two girls. I was cross talking. I was talking to her up in the front seat, and he's talking to the girl in the back. He's talking to the girl in the back seat. And so we stopped and we went in the restroom, and I said, hey, you see what's going on? I said, yeah, I see what's going on. I said, we got it mixed up here. I said, I'll handle it. So we got out the car, and I said, you girls need to stretch your legs, and the back seat's a little crowded. Why don't you girls just trade places? And they traded places, and then I started dating her, and 3 months later we were married.
Wow. Now, what job were you working?
General Motors, assembly line General Motors. I'm building cars, 69 and 70 Chevelle Super Sports. I bought my car from a supervisor at General Motors, had 3,000 miles on it. It listed for $4,500. This is a muscle car now. Listed for $4,500. I bought it for $3,300. 69 Chevelle Super Sport.
So you've always been a con man with me.
Con man? That's cold. That's cruel. I take advantage of an opportunity when I see it.
Right. You seize the moment.
I'm an opportunist.
You're an opportunist. Okay, not a con man.
I
Sorry.
like it a lot. Don't you?
Yeah. You've always been a politician too.
Opportunist.
So opportunist sounds a lot better than that.
Yes, it does.
So General Motors, that was considered a very good factory job back then,
It was
right?
a good factory job.
And like
it was a high paying.
Well,
but I made the ultimate mistake of my career was leaving Hallmark Cards to go to General Motors.
When was that?
That's I was married in the first marriage, and I was convinced that, in fact, right before my first marriage, I went in the Marine Corps at 19, got off active duty, came back to Hallmark Cards. And I, for just a little bit more money per hour, went to General Motors. I should have stayed at Hallmark. Everybody that went to work at Hallmark back in the 70s, 30, 40 years later, retired with over $1 million in their retirement fund.
Wow.
I walked away from them. I would have missed about a half a dozen chances to be a millionaire. And here I'm just a po' boy talking about it. But yeah, I've missed a lot of opportunities.
I mean, we're in a very nice backyard now, though.
Well,
but this is marriage number 4. We'll get into that a little bit.
I had to work my way back up the food chain again. It takes a little bit of effort at 70. You don't make it quite as quickly.
So what was do you remember what kind of day rate you were making at General Motors back? And then, because this would have been,
well, I mean, you're talking, believe it or not, in 1970, $4.50 an hour was good money.
Yeah.
It's like $30 an hour now. Yeah.
Your very first job, do you remember how much the rate was for that? Like your very first job?
Age 16 in the Virgin Islands, 50 cents an hour. And he got busted because he was paying too below minimum. They made us pay back pay to $1 an hour. So legally, he was supposed to be paying me $1 an hour, and he was paying me 50 cents. So my first job was $1 an hour.
Now, you grew up very religious, which a lot of people know about me, that you're the son of a missionary.
Right.
You're missionaries' kids. When you married your first wife, did that have the blessing from Grandma and Grandpa? Was she in the church this first marriage?
We were, yes, as long as we stayed in the church, everything was smooth. And there's whether you're an atheist or whatever, there's something about the community that a church provides that gives you some stability in a relationship and a marriage. So, yes, as long as we were in the church, things were good. Unfortunately, I was up and down like a yo-yo, and
what do you mean?
Now when I'm all leveled out.
yeah. I never see you up and down anymore.
I'm all leveled out now, but back in those days, I was up and down like a yo-yo, and more down than up. And
what were some of your ups and downs as the yo-yo?
Well,
going super religious and then backing off of it.
Yeah, that and part of the problem, and I just put it bluntly, my whole philosophy of religion's radically different than then. At that time, if you weren't perfect, then you were a sinner, and there's no hope for you, and you're going to hell. And now I realize that God still loves sinners, and you can sin, and still God forgives your sins, and you're still a Christian. So I see God in a whole different capacity now than then. But at that time, it was either all or nothing, and that kind of mentality drove a lot of people out of religion completely. Me too, me included.
Sure.
But now I realize that I'm a sinner saved by grace, and yes, I sin, but I know that God forgives, and it's all taken care of. He's my father. Father doesn't kick the son out. Once you ever adopted in the family, you don't get booted out just when you mess up.
That's very true. That's very true.
Didn't mean to get a sermon in, but I'll pass the plate here any minute now. We'll get a little money coming in. Anyway, so, but no, I divorced her, and I had a lot of regret about that. And
because you were with her for 7 years.
7 years.
And now that's getting to a kind of a pivotal point, like, because I'm in my early 30s now, where later on in your late 20s, you start kind of asking those questions with your significant other, like, are kids in the future?
Absolutely.
Is this happening? So was that one of the reasons that you guys split up, was she wanted kids and that you didn't yet?
I think she wanted children because when she remarried, she did have children by her second husband, and I'm certainly, I was a total jerk about the whole thing. I had unresolved issues with my own father. Until a person resolves those issues, he should not be a father himself. I did not. I expected perfection from my father, even though I was woefully short of that myself. And I didn't.
Why do you think you expected perfection from?
My
from
dad's
Grandpa?
a minister. He's a minister, and he's a man of the cloth. And yet, I see things in him that were very human, and fell short of what I thought he should have been. I was very judgmental and very harsh about him. And then only after I'd screwed up my own life and made a lot of stupid mistakes, then I realized he was a man of honor. He fought in World War II. He risked his life for this country and for freedom. And even though he had issues, PTSD, back those days they called it shell shock or nerves. Now it's PTSD. He did a lot of drugs. He did never drink or smoke, never smoked a cigarette, never drank a beer. But he did a lot of Valium and did a lot of opioids. And I saw him messed up on those to the point that he might as well have been drunk. And I held that against him. Again, I expected perfection of him, but not of myself. And that's what you call a hypocrite, I guess. Expected more of other people than you do yourself.
Well, that's what's kind of hard about, I think, what's a turnoff for some people, like you mentioned, from the church, is that judgmental energy is exactly the reason why people kind of steer clear of churches. I mean, it's definitely a reason why I have not found a church home that I really connect with. Is there's a judgmental energy in a lot of organized religion settings, I find sometimes, that is sometimes kind of harder to overlook, where I would rather kind of just have my own personal beliefs and my own relationship with God, rather than kind of feeling that judgmental nature. Like, the church that we grew up going to, perfect example.
Absolutely, certainly a good example of that.
Was that in a nutshell. It was all gossip. It was all judgmental energy.
They weren't just judgmental of people outside the church. They were just as judgmental of people inside the church.
They ran their mouth about everybody.
If you didn't attain a level of perfection on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you were missing the mark, and you were in need of prayer and all that went along with that. So yeah, there was a tremendous amount of judgmental within the church itself of one against each other, and I didn't feel a truly compassionate, loving environment in that church. All I felt was that I could never measure up. I could never be good enough to please them.
It felt very fire and brimstone at that church. Like a lot of, like, because as a kid, I have a lot of memories of legit being afraid of going to hell. Yeah. Like if I did, what I mean? Like legitimately, if I did something wrong, I was afraid that, I'm going to go to hell, like, right now.
Well, and again, this is not about theology, but the fundamental difference between my way of being raised was you could live a perfect sinless life, and you could say a swear word and then have a car wreck, and as you said that swear word, a semi hits your car and you're killed and you die and you go to hell because you said the swear word, because that was a sin. And I know better now. I know that the Heavenly Father, we are His children once we ever have truly become His children, and He doesn't give up on us just because we mess up. And I know better now. But at the time I didn't, and it drastically affected my whole relationship with people, with God, with everything. It affected all my life. And I have a freedom now that I've never known before, and I've only found that in the last few years, and way too late in life. God's a loving God and a forgiving God. Once we ever truly know Him, we don't unknow Him. We're His children.
Do you find that were you able to connect with Grandpa at a later time in life?
Yes, I was. I by the time I had gone through divorce, bankruptcy, business failure, done every stupid thing I could do, and I've tasted success too. I know what it's like to fly in a company jet and a Saberliner with the president of a large insurance company, and I also know what it's like to be living in my van. So I've known both extremes. Not by the river. That was no river, but I did live in my van.
Well, I tell people occasionally that we've all had financially over the years. We've all especially with like. You and Mom getting divorced and different stuff like that. There's been different social income levels, and you found a skill that I appreciate, and that is dumpster diving.
That's one of my hobbies. That's one of my passions.
Because you've actually, my dad's given me a Chiefs beanie that looked almost brand new that I put through the washer.
Oh yeah, you want to sanitize. You want to sanitize.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Let's not be gross about this. You know what I mean? Right. One man's trash is a Watkins present.
Well, there are
because you have given me. You have to admit, you have given me some dumpster dive Christmas presents, haven't you?
I don't recall that. you'd have to be more specific.
You definitely
need
have
to be more specific because you can't. That's a blanket statement, and I resent that.
You resemble.
So anyway, but no, dumpster diving is a fun thing now because again, pride is comes in many forms. You can be just as proud of being a dumpster diver as being proud of being a millionaire, and I'm proud of the fact that I can find something of value and not have to spend any money for it. Now, if I had converted that same energy to just going and getting an extra job, so I'd probably been, who knows, way farther ahead, but I wouldn't have had near as much fun. Finally, after all my dumpster diving, I finally got in trouble. First time ever.
When?
Got it. It was a residence. There's a car parked out front. There's a dumpster in the guy's driveway. It was one of those open door dumpsters. You could just walk into one end of it. I walked into one end of it and started going through some stuff. And I heard a voice behind me says, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm looking through this dumpster. He says, "You're on my property." I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know anybody was home." I said, I thought the house was vacant. He said, "There's a car parked out front." I said, "Well, sometimes people leave cars just so it'll look like they're living there." He says, "I don't appreciate you coming in my dumpster." He says, "Because they won't take this stuff if it's above the top level." And he said, "You got it all tore up." I said, "Sir, I apologize. If I promise you I'll put it back like it was." And I says, I was afraid he was going to kick my butt. I knew I had an ass kicking coming. But
what part of town were you in?
Right here, about a mile from my house.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was Raymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, he cut me some slack, and he said, "Well, okay, I'll let you go," but he says, "I want everything back like it was." So that was the cleanest, most organized looking dumpster I'd ever seen in my life.
Now,
when I got done.
On your way out, did you take any items?
I took several items. Well, I was already there.
That's your fine.
I ain't leaving without some goodies.
Yeah.
But no.
What was one of the things that you got while you're in there?
I've got a whole house full of dumpster stuff, so I can't remember specifically what it was.
Does your wife, Jana get upset with you ever from bringing?
She won't let me. If we're together, she will not.
She won't let you stop.
She won't let me stop.
No.
So I'll usually circle back.
You have to do it on your own time.
I'll take her home and go back on my own.
It's kind of like, I don't care if you do it, but just not in front of me.
There's one exception. We're out at a lake. This is lake homes all around this lake called Lake Lotawana. And we'd just gone to a nice dinner at the marina. And afterwards, I said, let's just drive around the lake. It's sunset. And I saw this dumpster in front of the house, obviously vacant. And the sailboat is up on my mantle. And there was a bag of furs in that dumpster. And I grabbed the bag of furs and the boat. And I called a couple of furriers in Kansas City, and they didn't want them. took them to a pawn shop.
Wait, you know fur people in Kansas City?
No, I just called a couple of furriers, Alaska fur, whatever, and then I took it to a pawn shop.
Did you
and
go
they
down
found-
the yellow pages, or how did you go about?
I knew there were a couple of fur places in town, and so then I decided to just put them on Craigslist. So I threw them on Craigslist. Either buy each individual or all. Long story short, I sold them for $300 to the first guy that came out.
Really?
For $300.
And they were it was just a bag of fur in the dumpster.
Well, it was fur coats. Ladies' fur coats.
Ladies' fur coats.
Ladies' fur coats. I probably gave them away. They're probably worth a lot more than $300.
Probably, but it's also like you're not a fur guy. So how do you know it all?
I didn't know.
How do you get rid of it?
All I can say is he couldn't wait to give me my money and take them all.
Oh, I bet.
So
How many was there?
4 or 5.
Oh,
coats.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, where are you going to take those? I
was just going to use them maybe for modeling my wife. I thought maybe you kind of have some fun with them. You can only get so much mileage out of schoolgirl outfits, right? I thought some furs would be kind of nice.
No. I don't want to think of my stepmom like that.
No, you don't want to think that way. Neither do I. No, I'm kidding. I do. Actually. But no, we have fun. We have a lot of fun.
No, but in all seriousness,
more fun for me.
We have a lot of fun.
Probably a lot more fun for me than her, but she suffers through it. So it's a workable deal.
So what?
I don't know.
Did you want to put another?
My mind's a blank.
Did you want to put another log on the fire?
Yeah, let me put another log.
Yeah. I'll talk while you grab another log. Now, Dad, people were a lot of people liked you in my special, Jeremiah Watkins Family Reunion, which you can rent on Amazon or purchase it. It's only $5 on Amazon if you want to check it out. Give it a 5-star rating if you've already watched it. All those ratings and stuff help, but people liked your interviews a lot on that, and I wanted to give an opportunity for you to be shown even a little bit more. But what was it like seeing yourself in a stand-up special? Because that's got to be a unique kind of feeling, seeing your son put out.
Well, it gave me a kind of an idea of what it must be like to be Jeremiah, because I've always wondered, what's it like to be on stage? What is it like to be have people looking at you with admiration or with enjoyment? I've always I've tried a little karaoke, had fun doing it. First time I was very, very clumsy with it. Second time got a little better. And by the time I'd done it the third time, I was having fun with it. So, but that's the closest thing I'd ever had to any exposure as far as a crowd. I've spoken in a church environment. They're usually very supportive. Mm-hmm. And it was an interesting and unique experience. I will say that.
Well, so you mentioned to me when we were driving around that you're thinking about doing a comedy routine.
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of Dr. Ruth Westheimer was her name, I believe. She was a sex therapist. I'm thinking more of a Christian country boy sex therapist, from kind of not risque, not vulgar, but still Christians need sex. So they probably need more of that advice than a lot of other people, and I can certainly provide it for them because I've had a very checkered past.
So this would be like more of a character that you do,
kind of like a Red Green show, only with sex.
Right.
Now,
would you put on a wig and different stuff like that?
I'll probably bib overalls, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a straw hat. I'd ham it up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you have a voice picked up for this guy, and do you have a name?
Oh,
or would you go by yourself?
No, I could come up with a stage name, probably. Maybe Uncle Herschel. Maybe Uncle Herschel's. I like Herschel's because it brings back memories of my son going to breakfast with me at Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel.
Uncle
That's
Herschel.
our spot. That's our spot.
I'm thinking Uncle Herschel's old time sexual advice for Christians and wannabe.
Okay,
Christian
so
wannabe.
let's. I'm gonna act like I'm calling into the show, okay? And you're gonna be Uncle Herschel, okay?
I hadn't reviewed my material here lately.
It's called improv.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot.
I am putting you on the spot a little bit.
Well, I think the whole thing is this whole sexual revolution. Women they got the first shot at it because the women got the pill. And then all of a sudden, here comes the little blue pill for the men, which has set a whole lot of old men free. I'm here to tell you, if you think that whatever's good, makes it a whole lot better. And
so you use Viagra?
Not more than twice a day. Usually more. I'd like to be ready. You can do Cialis that keeps you ready all the time. Viagra does the same. They just do it morning and night, and you're good. No, you're always ready.
So you have it, the Monday through Sunday vitamin boxes. Do you have that like per each day?
Yeah, I
set
usually
out?
keep it separate. I don't want to double dose or something because then you got problems.
Then you have a heart issue.
Well, no, it lowers blood pressure. In fact, when they discovered Viagra, they were looking for a heart medication that would lower blood pressure. And all of a sudden, these guys in the lab are all walking around with erections. And they realized they'd found something that might be the solution to the ED problem in the country.
Oh, there you go.
I was sold in sales my whole career, sold heating and cooling products. And upper exclusive area of Kansas City is called Wrist Lake. Man had a beautiful 2-story house, but the upstairs was hot. Well, I'm there to solve the problem, and I'm selling him a system for the second floor. And he said, I am the Pfizer rep for Kansas City. He said, and of course, Pfizer had just come out with Viagra. This is back in the 80s, or late 70s, early 80s. And he said, you might say this house was erected on Viagra. So yes, it's made a good thing. Certainly put a lot of guys back in the game that were thinking the game was over.
Yeah.
And put them back in the game in a big way. Really. And for you guys out there that are concerned about size, if you think it matters, well, then that's another thing. It just kind of gives you a little extra junk in the trunk, a little extra girth and just a little bit more.
Just a little bit more.
A little bit more oomph.
Pushing for the pushing.
Definitely, but the biggest thing is it make you a rock star. You absolutely could be a rock star.
You feel like a rock star when you.
Well, I've been on it for so many years now. I've learned to live with it. But yeah, absolutely. I recommend it for guys in their 30s and 40s that think they're good. They don't even have a clue. They don't have a clue.
with the performance enhancing drugs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's high octane energy.
Okay. So I'm an old woman who's calling into the Uncle Herschel program, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to get sex advice from a hillbilly Christian character.
Right.
That is you, okay?
That's me.
Okay.
Me. Okay.
Okay, so
ma'am. What's your question, ma'am?
Well, I have an issue with my husband. He wants me to pleasure him downstairs, but I don't know if that's ladylike or Christian-like behavior. What is your opinion?
Well, the St. Paul had some things to say about that, and he basically said the only time that a woman should withhold herself from a man is if it's by joint consent. And I don't know of any man that ever gives consent for them to withhold themselves. So, of the leaders. Yeah.
Would you say that I should?
I would say that certainly it's to mutual advantage to pleasure the other person. But
I don't know if I like it or not.
Are we talking about the more or less the conventional manner of pleasure, or are we talking about something a little more off of the beaten track?
Well, he first wanted me to, blow on it down there, and then he asked me to put a tongue in his butthole one night.
Well, I'm not into the unsanitary issues of the subject, so therefore I don't consider that sanitary. And unless you have,
but outside of sanitary, do you think the Lord would approve of that behavior between a husband and a wife?
I think the Lord approves of anything the husband and wife approve of. The Bible says the bed of marriage is undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers I will judge, saith the Lord. So I think the marriage is what God specialized. Adam and Eve, let's face it, He created them naked, right? They had no clothing on. So God's not against nudity. Absolutely not.
So do you think I should toss my husband's salad? Do you think I should give him a rim job?
If you can do it.
Do you think the church would approve of that?
I think that's getting a little more into the personal issue. I don't think the church has any right to say what goes on in the bedroom in a marriage situation. I think it's up to the husband and the wife. If it works for you, then go for it. And if it's always a good idea to experiment and try new things. You can't go wrong on that.
Thank you so much for your advice.
God bless you, ma'am.
Well, you just took your first caller on your show. That's exciting.
Yes, it is.
So we've covered the first and second marriage, which leaves number 3, which is
Your
that's
mother.
my mom.
Your dear, beautiful mother.
Yes. So how did you originally meet Mom?
I was out with a wingman. In fact, we were both two guys out in a bar, and she was with a friend of hers, and I think she and her friend got separated. And the long story short is, she was from Des Moines, where she's come down to the city for the weekend, and I took her home, and we spent the night, and then she went back to Des Moines that weekend, and then I got off on in the middle of the week. I was in sales, had worked Saturdays, so I got off during.
What were you selling at this time?
Cars. I was in the car business.
Okay.
And so I'd go to Des Moines during the middle of the week, and she'd come down on the weekends. We did that for 3 months, and then we got married.
3 months.
3 months. Something magical about 3 months in my life. I'm not sure what it is. If you can't make a decision, if you can't figure it out in 90 days,
they've
it ain't
made
meant to be.
90 Day Fiance. They made a whole show out of it.
Did they? I've not heard. I'm not aware of that.
I'll send
90
you some links.
There you go. I'd
90
like to see
90
it.
Day Fiancé.
I'd like to see it. No, there's something about a 90-day period of time. The seasons. The Bible says for every season, there's a season for everything. 90 days is a season.
Okay. So first night, did you hook up with Mom on the first night?
Well, you need to ask your mom that question. Because I did work at a company that your mother worked at, and when they found out that I was married to your mom, I never said a bad word about her. All I said is, she never told me no. She never told me no. That's all I ever said about her. She never told me no.
I guess I asked. I got more than I needed to know on that.
Well, you didn't get here accidentally. There was some effort put in to get you here.
So, how long before? Because I have a couple siblings. So, how long before your firstborn came into the picture? How long had you and Mom been dating before?
Your mother was. When we met, the night we met, we talked about life. And
Was it one of those things where you stayed up like real late into the night the first night?
Just talking. We talked for hours, and she let me know she had been married, divorced, and she was ready to settle down and have children. I told her, I said, I've finally resolved the issues with my own father. I'm ready to be a dad.
What was the final thing in your opinion between you and Grandpa where you felt kind of closure on like I think I'm good now, like as far as like I'm ready to have my own kids and I'm ready to start a family and stuff?
I think it was the fact that I finally had to take a hard look at the man and realize that in spite of him being human, in spite of his failures, he stayed married to my mom for 50 years. He also fought in World War II, risked his life for me, that I might have freedom. And the things I held against him were failings that were very, very human. And I also looked at my own life, and after looking at my checkered past, I realized that it was time to forgive him and move on.
Was there a certain moment though that you or was it a gradual progression of things?
Over the last, I think that it was a gradual progression in the last couple of years.
Because this is after you had lived in Dallas and Tucson. I'm just trying to figure out the timeline stuff. And moved back to Kansas City. How long were you in Kansas City before you started dating Mom? And this is when you were selling cars?
Selling cars.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd been single for probably 2 or 3 years, and I was selling cars. So.
Now, as a single guy, were you active in the scene?
Was I active in the?
Were you active in the dating scene?
Yeah, I in fact, car sales is awesome because you meet a lot of young women, and I always got the car sale done first. You don't ever want to you get it the other way around. Otherwise, you end up with no car sale and just some fun stories to talk about. But
has that ever happened? Were you accidentally?
Nope, never got involved until after I sold them a car. They buy a car, and I figure they've already bought me. They're already that's the battle's already won. And not that everyone I sold a car to I slept with. That wasn't the point at all. But some of them I really didn't want to.
But that was a nice sales commission.
But it was a fringe benefit.
Yeah,
definitely fringe benefit.
So you're single, you're dating stuff for a few years, and then you start dating Mom. You met her at a bar?
Met her at a bar.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, we spent hours talking that night. She wanted to have kids. I was ready to settle down and have kids. We went back and forth I'd go up to Des Moines and I'd spend the day while she was working. I'd go and I was pretty active. I'd run down by the river and jogging or and working out, and then she'd get off work, and then we'd spend the time together, and then she'd come down on the weekends. We did that for 3 months, and we decided, hey, either make it or break it. And
Yeah, because that's
let's
like a
make it.
3.5, 4 hour drive.
Yeah.
So that
make
starts
it or
to be
break.
a
So
lot
we
of.
decided, yes, we're going to go for it. And then all of a sudden, about a year, 9 months, 10 months later, here comes my first son.
Yeah.
And then a little girl after about another year and a half. Then we waited a little while.
Were you guys trying, did you know that she was like off the pill or anything like that? Like the whole time
we knew she was ready. I was ready. We didn't. Oh yeah, we never.
How old were you when you decided that you were like this ready?
Jonathan's 36.
35.
So I would have been 35.
35 was when you're like,
35,
I'm ready.
36. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's doorways. I believe every 7 years you have a doorway in life. That was doorway number 5 for me at 35.
I feel like I'm entering my new doorway. I'm 32 right now, so and you obviously
the big doorway.
have a son on the way now. You're going to be
one of the biggest
first grandchild you're going to have. Yeah.
We're pretty pumped about that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to see that you've got your father issues maybe resolved a few years ahead of me. So any issues that you
I honestly, I don't think I really have too many father issues.
Well, like I say, I've had a checkered past, and you guys are pretty much aware of my shortcomings like I was aware of my own father's. The difference is I came from a judge. I think the religion thing had a lot to do with me. I expected perfection from him because everybody expected me to live a perfect, sinless life as a Christian. So I expected the same of him. I don't expect that of people. And we're all sinners. We're all sinners. But there's a great Savior that forgives our sins. Thank God for that.
There you go. So when I want to go back. So around the same time you said, so that's when you started having kids with mom and everything like that. What were the jobs? Because you've had a lot of different jobs over
nearly all sales,
all under the umbrella of sales. But people ask me a lot. They're like, well, so what does your dad do? And
everything.
And I'm like, well, he's been a salesman his entire life. But he sold a lot of different things. You want to kind of walk me and the listeners through some of the interesting jobs you may have had?
Well, unfortunately, but by not getting whatever you may think about college degrees, they don't make you smart. You're either dumb or smart. College gives you something on your resume that says that you have the ability to stick to something and stay with it, which makes you desirable to an employer. Therefore, there's a certain level of achievement that comes to a person with a college degree. If nothing, even an associate's degree still says you adhered to a discipline enough to get a degree. And by not having that, there are a lot of jobs you're just not qualified for. They will not hire you. And even back in the 70s and 80s when jobs were plentiful, and that's the other thing too, the economy was so good, if you didn't like where you were, you could always move. It was very easy to go. In the car business, money was good. You could just simply pick up and change dealerships. They're called floaters. That was kind of a negative connotation, but a lot of that happened. Guys changed jobs all the time in car sales. Same with the insurance business, same way. Change companies. Still selling the same product, just flying under different flag. Kind of like a pirate flying under a different flag.
Right.
But with the car business, to give you an example, I went to work for the number one Datsun at the time. They're Nissans now, but the number one Datsun dealer in the Midwest. I'd never sold cars before in my life, and you drove a car based on your sales for that month. I started out in a little Datsun B210 the first month. The second month, I drove a 310. The third month, I drove a 510. The fourth month, I drove a 200SX. The fifth month, I was salesman of the month and drove a 280ZX.
So they would bump you up all according to sales. Wow.
Worked up
That's a lot of incentive as a young guy.
Absolutely. So by the fifth month, I'm driving the 280ZX sports car, and then the sixth month, I got promoted to leasing manager. So I'm making good money. And
when you're in the 280ZX, were you peak man whore?
Well, yeah, because I'd bought me a black 280Z also. So I had two 280ZXs in my driveway, one which I gave a long-legged blonde to drive. She was ha 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 ha.
Do you remember her name?
No, but I sure remember her.
It was like a casual girlfriend along the way?
Yeah, she had a secretarial service, and I think she was.
What was her secretarial service?
She just basically did secretarial work as a contractor for different small businessmen.
Right.
And I think she was sweetening
She made
the
your
deal.
small businessman a
was
big
sweet.
businessman?
I wasn't the only one she was doing business with. I found out later. I was in love with her, and she was in love with everybody.
Right.
So anyway, I didn't have an exclusive on that deal. So we parted company. And then, then I met your mom not too long after that, actually. Yeah.
How old were you when you lost your virginity?
Man, I was 19. I went in the Marine Corps, did 6 months active duty in the Marine Corps as a virgin. And
did you feel like going to the Marines, like at that age, like, did you find that most of the other guys around you had sex by then?
Oh, they were all talking about eating pussy. That's all you could hear about, eating pussy. That's all.
That
you
was
could
like
hear
the
about. Oh,
macho thing in the Marines.
That was it. It was. And one guy said he was into armpits. I don't know what he was kind of.
He was
weird.
into armpits.
He just likes
He
eating armpits.
he would lick an armpit.
I guess.
He'd go down on an armpit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there was a couple of gay guys in the platoon, Cincinnati and Gorse.
Did you know?
Oh yeah, they didn't try to hit on me. I didn't hit on that. You know, we knew.
But at this time though, they wouldn't say it out loud, would they?
Well, we knew they were gay, but they were into each other, and they didn't mess with us. We didn't bother them. They performed.
It was like a mutual.
Yeah, we left them alone. They were. I mean, obviously, you don't do it. They weren't open with it. And in the Marine Corps back in those days, if you could cut it, if you could do the runs and you could do the drills and you could keep up and do your thing, they didn't care. They're going to send you to Vietnam. You're going to be cannon fodder. You're going to Nam.
But you couldn't. But you couldn't be. You probably wouldn't be allowed to be openly gay.
No,
yeah.
no. This was
kind of like
don't ask, don't tell. Definitely.
Gotcha.
And of course.
And what year? What year
so,
were you in the Marines?
67. They could still ask. You had to say back.
Oh, they could directly ask you.
Absolutely. And if you said you were, you did not go in the military. The don't ask, don't tell happened in the later 70s.
Okay.
Yep.
So would that be one of the things of the checklist that they would ask
probably
you? Or
on the
was it a drill sergeant
application,
thing?
probably your recruiter. That might be somewhere in the paperwork it would ask your sexual orientation.
So like you were friends with these gay guys, but they wouldn't
Well, nobody's your friend. In the boot camp, you have no friends.
Really?
Well,
it's that mentality?
The mentality is every man for himself. I mean, you become a team in the fact that you have to do things as a unit.
Right.
You become bigger than yourself. You're now part of a unit.
Yeah.
But as far as personal friendships, there are guys that had friends. We went in. There were 4 of us that went in from Kansas City, and a couple of those guys became friends as a result of that. But the Marine Corps thing was, we did. I never said a swear word, never drank a beer in 6 months active duty in the Marine Corps. Where I went to heck in a handbasket was going to General Motors after I got out.
So up to that point, had you never drank before?
Never drank.
When did you start drinking?
At General Motors.
What, after all that time, what led you? Because that's interesting. Because in my opinion, those were the hardest years. Were up until, like around that time,
right.
Because that's where a lot of the high school and peer pressure and all that stuff comes in.
Well, see, I went to Bible school, so there's no peer pressure to drink. And so I went directly from a sophomore. I was in my sophomore year at a Bible college, and these guys were hanging out in there pretending to be. They had ministerial deferments, and they were a bunch of pussies. They weren't going to be ministers. They were just hiding out. And I said, screw them. I'm going to show them. I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. And I did.
Oh, they were hiding at the Bible school.
Yeah, they were a couple. They never became ministers, but they got a ministerial deferment. Kept them as long as you got carried 12 hours and said you were studying to be a minister. You didn't have to go to Vietnam. Didn't have to go to the military. You got a deferment.
And you were like, screw this. I'm signing up.
Exactly. So
I never knew that about you.
Well, I was so disgusted with their lack of patriotism. I tried to go in the Army at age 17. I brought paperwork home to my mom and dad, and
they wouldn't sign
right
it?
out of high school. They wouldn't let me go. I was going at 17. But they wouldn't let me. So anyway, I did the Marine Corps thing. No, it all, when I got to General Motors, Now all of a sudden I'm in an environment where every Monday, the joke was you never buy a Monday car or a Friday car from General Motors. Monday everybody's hungover, Friday everybody's drunk. So you wanted a production date to be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. It was that bad.
Right.
Oh, it was terrible. This was back when the Japanese were just starting to kick our butts because the quality was so bad on American cars back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I got to General Motors. All of a sudden now the guys are all going out to the bars. They go to the bar at lunchtime. They sneak across and go to the bars. They go after work, and that's where the women are. And I said, I want to get laid. I want to have fun. I got to drink. And that's when I started drinking.
Because you saw everybody else around you having fun with it and stuff like that.
Everybody drank.
And also
and
being from somewhere, being a missionary's kid, you never see anything like that. And then
I went from one extreme to the other. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas in the Marine Corps, active duty, we didn't have any liberty for the first 90 days, so nobody got to drink or smoke. You get busted for any kind of, even smoking was a big offense.
Do you remember the name of the first girl you had sex with?
Well, she was a prostitute, so I don't remember her name. What? I paid for it. What? She was also...
The first woman you slept with was a prostitute?
Yes.
Where was this?
I was 19. I was somewhere down in Kansas City, Missouri, a little hotel room.
You drove down in Kansas City?
Oh, yeah. We were back in those days, you drove all over town. You weren't afraid of anything. We drove all over town.
So you just drove down to Kansas City, Missouri?
In Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, this wasn't in the hood, but this was in, but the hookers worked the area. They knew where the white boys were. The money worked at General Motors.
Well, you said white boys was your first prostitute?
African American.
That's how I knew my dad was cool.
Hi, darling. 5 o'clock. Cool.
All right. Thanks, Jana.
I see. My nuts may be in a vice now.
His new wife just came out.
Screwed the pooch, didn't I? I just screwed the pooch.
His new wife just came out and all that. That was great. So the first woman you ever slept with was an African American woman. See, I always knew you were cool. I knew there was something about you.
Well, you knew I had an affair to pay your mom back. Remember, because obviously she had an African American boyfriend. I had an ongoing relationship with a 19-year-old when I was 60. She was 19. And we hung out for about. I picked her up in a strip club, and she came dancing for me. And I said, "If you were mine, I'd spoil you rotten." And that was all it took. We hooked up for about 2 months.
Yeah, but when Mom had her boyfriend, you guys had split up by then.
Well, we're split up, but I was still mad. I was still mad about it.
Oh, and that was your payback?
I was holding it.
You were like, you have
payback.
So you're like, you have a black boyfriend, I'm going to have a black girlfriend?
Yeah.
That's an interesting payback method. There you go.
Made a lot of sense, didn't it?
So it was
most of my life about that convoluted.
I don't know if that's progressive or the complete opposite. That's a very strange place to be. So the first woman that you had sex with, I'm fascinated by this. Prostitute.
Yeah.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much it was? Jana's back inside. We're good. We're good.
This is 70s now. I'm sorry. Yeah, 1970, 71.
Yeah.
About $50, $75. No more than $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when you were working at
General Motors.
General Motors. Yeah. So what led you? Was there that many people that were talking about it in the Marines and just General Motors?
I'm having to hang my head in silence while all these young guys are talking. They're all having an active sex life, and I have none. You know, Slim and none, and Slim left town.
Right.
So,
right.
I was definitely I was overdue.
So you give the prostitute the money,
right?
And does she say, do you remember her name or anything like that?
No.
Okay, so just had to double check. Does she ask you, what do you want? Or does she know?
No, really. Because she was just there to get me off. I mean, it wasn't romantic at all. I assure you. It was not romantic. I mean, at that age, wind can blow and you can get ready. But it was not romantic. And they make they bring a washcloth out. So, it didn't require protection back in those days. But
so does she wash your penis?
No, they make sure you do.
Oh, she brought a washcloth for you to go clean up in the bathroom.
That's why they carry those big bags. They've got everything in there with the kitchen sink.
So
Those hoe
did she,
bags.
now, you had heard so much about eating pussy.
Right. Oh, no.
Did
No,
you?
No, that wasn't a consideration. Not at all.
Not the first time.
And those women, for that matter, most of them will not let you kiss them. That's off limits.
Did you kiss her?
No, that's off limits.
So it was just penetration.
That's it. All 10 minutes of it.
10 minutes? I was about to ask you next.
I knew that was coming, so I figured let's get that out of the way.
Yeah. I was curious first time how long.
And there was so little feeling or enjoyment on my part. She says, I think we're done. I think you really. And it was mechanical. It was
And you were just almost
enjoyable.
like getting it out of the way kind of thing?
It was like get it out. It was like I just had to lose my virginity. That was all it was about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was no enjoyment.
Well,
at
the
all.
second time, did you have a much better time? Did you wait on somebody or the second or third time around?
Yeah, my second, I hooked up with a little Catholic girl.
Uh-huh.
And I remember her. No, I remember her name. I won't give it on that. She might be alive, but she might have died of cancer, so I can't give you her name. We'll just say Kat. Her name was Kathy also. And Kathy. But she had the Pilates thing going. As Larry the Cable Guy, instead of Pilates, it was pull-outies. The Catholic girls, they believe it. Birth control was just not, you couldn't finish inside. You had to pull out.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's Catholic all the way.
That's their
Yep.
form of their form of birth control.
Mhm.
But
It
it
is.
still counts as sex though.
Oh,
to
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. So that was my first real experience where I had a relationship.
And was that like a girlfriend that you had for a while?
Yeah, we dated for a while.
How'd you meet her?
I don't remember how I met her. Picked her up. Met her.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bar. I mean, back in those days, waitresses are fair game.
Mm-hmm.
Meet somebody at a park. I don't know. People, you got to remember, the sexual revolution was going pretty strong. I picked up a girl
In the
hitchhiking
70s,
one
right?
time. Yeah, I picked up a girl hitchhiking one time. Went to her apartment. I mean, if a girl was attracted to you, you're attracted to her. It just happened.
Oh, it was just a different way of life. Then.
People didn't think, you didn't have AIDS back then.
Well, what do you think of the age of like Tinder? These apps where people are hooking up just by swiping left and right. Do you think that's better or worse than it was in the 70s?
Anything to eliminate the pimp and the middleman's a good thing. I mean, it eliminates the pimp. I mean, the pimp is, he beats up his hoes, slap a hoe, type of deal. And no, I'm all for eliminating the pimp. If a woman's going to do it, let her be her own boss.
Yeah.
I'm all about entrepreneurship.
Now, some people wanted to ask, just from seeing your videos, we'll get into it briefly and then we'll close the show out. I usually close the show out with something called Sax Talk. Unfortunately, I don't have my saxophone with me, but we've covered a lot of your sexual stories.
More than we probably should have, but anyway.
they've been amazing. So what do you think of the current politics and masks right now with the coronavirus and stuff like that?
The mask outdoors is, from all I've read, and again, my opinion is worth no more or no less than what I've read. And our opinions are based on who we're listening to. If you listen to conservative radio and conservative TV, you have a different opinion about masks than you do if you're listening to CNN or in the other side of the coin. I personally think masks outdoors are a waste of time. I will wear them if I am interacting with people outdoors and it causes them to be offended. The good book tells me that as much as possible to avoid being of offense to other people. In particular, if it's nothing more than me wearing a mask, which is a minor inconvenience, then I'll do it for the sake of peace and harmony in society. Mm-hmm. That's my philosophy on it.
And politics right now, where do you think the country's at right now with politics?
Going to hell in a handbasket, just pure and simple. We are now at the mercy of these reprobates.
Speak freely.
Sodomites, bottom line.
Who are sodomites?
Anybody that's endorsing homosexuality. We have now, as the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Buttigieg kisses his male husband there's no such thing. You can't have two husbands. The only husband and wife are the only thing ordained by God. But anyway, he kisses his gay lover on national TV in celebration of his new appointment to his position. So, yes, I'm 100% against that kind of thing. I'm against the public display of emotion and affection, even between men and women in public.
Well, what are your thoughts on if somebody is gay married,
right,
but they go to church and they say they believe in God and that they worship regularly? What are your thoughts on that?
Satan believes in God. That doesn't make him a Christian. Satan's not an atheist. Satan's not an atheist. Anything else?
I'm just curious because I mean this is where, so if we're talking a little theology and stuff like that, this is where I believe that regardless of sexual orientation, if you believe in God and you're a good person, and I think that that's okay. Like I think that's basic. Like I'm basically at a place in my life and my life views, and I think that they will still get into heaven. If who knows if there is actually a heaven? I believe there is a heaven, but I think that they will still go to heaven.
I think from the beginning, they asked Jesus about divorce. He said from the beginning it was not so. He said a man would leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the same would become one flesh. He didn't say a man would leave his mother and father and join another man. Jesus Christ clearly ordained the relationship of a man and a woman as the proper way of marriage. There's nothing in history, all throughout history, no society has ever condoned marriage between two people of the same sex. This is something new, it's something revolutionary, and it is destructive to the family. It does not produce children. Obviously, if everybody became gay, and other than through artificial insemination, we'd have the elimination of our society within 50 years. There'd be no more people on the planet if all men married men and women married women. So therefore, common sense says, for reproductive purposes itself, for leaving religion out of it, common sense is that you put the opposite sex together to reproduce. God did not create Adam and Eve. He created Adam and Eve. He didn't create Adam and Steve.
I knew that was coming. I've heard,
you knew it was coming. I had to get it in there.
But I asked you. I asked you, and we're just having a conversation about it. We're having a dialogue about it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ died for all humanity. He loves the sinner.
Yes, Jesus died for everybody.
But he hates sin. The sin, it caused his death on the cross. So he hates sin, but he loves the sinner. I have gay people. My wife has a gay hairdresser. I'd love to have him for dinner if he wanted to come to dinner tonight. He could join us. I don't hate a single gay person on the planet. I have some. When I was in sales, I had gay customers. I would go drink wine with them on their front porch while they waved at their gay lovers as they walked by. And I had a great relationship with them. I never had a problem with it. But by the same token, does that mean that I approve of their lifestyle? I'm sorry, I don't. But that doesn't mean I don't hate. I don't hate.
Right, you still love everybody.
Absolutely. If you can't, if you don't have love in your heart for everybody, then you're not a Christian.
There you go. That's a good positive way to seal that.
Because
I think that's a good. I think that's a good place.
No, but on a positive note, all sin separates us from a perfect, sinless God. If God's not perfect and not sinless, then heaven help us. We're all in trouble. So, based on absolute perfection, we all fall short of the glory. So the Bible says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's it. I'll leave it at that.
So, to wrap up this podcast, I just want to ask you, because I would love to do more episodes with you in the future. I'm splitting time between you and Mom's house right now. I'm about to go over there, so I can see her for a little bit. But I want to ask you. So I'm about to become a dad.
Mm-hmm.
What is your advice, if you have any words of wisdom for your son becoming a father?
Love your mother. Love the mother of your child. The child is going to learn. They say about a Christian, people don't care what I say. They care what I do. They're reading me. I may be the only Bible somebody ever reads. So if I genuinely say I'm a Christian, it's based on how I live and how I act, not what I say. By the same token, if you love your child, love your wife, and that they learn to love through loving parents. That's the only advice I'd give you. Other than that, you got to wing it. You got to figure it out for yourself, because I'm still working on it. I'm the last person to give family advice as far as raising children. That's a whole different sack of cats. I'm here to tell you.
Well, Dadoo, I love you so much. Thank you so much
Enjoyed it.
for spending time with me today.
Hey, thank you. I'm honored that you do this. Maybe you can clip out enough where there's 5 or 10 minutes worthwhile stuff in here, but it's been fun.
No, I think people will enjoy getting to know my dad a little bit more. And is there anything that you want to say before we say goodbye?
I want to say this, that the solution to this country, politically is not in the White House. Until a person has found the way to love those different from ourselves, until love is the only solution to the political problems in this country, until we can love people different from us and have compassion for them, there'll never be a solution to the politics of this country. That's all I got.
Beautifully said. Love you, Dadoo.
Love you, son.
Jeremiah Wonders.